we went there. I remember him like being like, just making it a show. Like, this is the guy I'm fighting, da da da. So I was already pissed that he did that, you know. Went in there, first round, hit him with an overhand, stunned him, dropped to his knees, and then I guillotined him, put him to sleep in front of his whole crowd, which is cool.
Was that like a 2-minute fight?
Probably, yeah, about 2.5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this. What do you think, or from all of your experience and obviously working with all these top fighters, when you see a lot of other strength and conditioning coaches and what they're doing with fighters, what seems to be missing? Because like when you think of S&C, you're like, get this person big and jacked and strong. But what do you think they're missing? Well,
they have to know the individual, right? They have to know how fighters think. They have to know the exact schedules that the fighters go through, right? There's a lot of demands that go through, you know, a fighter schedule inside the week, inside the training day. Yeah. You know, so understanding the bioenergetic demands of the sport, understanding what they're doing on a constant basis, you know, that's the big thing, is communication between skills coaches. A lot of times the strength and conditioning coaches are distant from the skills coaches. And a lot of times there's a disconnect when it comes down to preparation, right? Most of the S&C guys want to smash them, want to get them in condition and put them through the ringer, right? Well, so does the wrestling coach, so does the BJJ coach, so does the boxing coach. They all want to do the same thing. So having constant communication between coaches is always key. And then obviously you want to make sure that the schedule is down pat. And then you have to know how to manage that fatigue. And you do that through subjective and objective indicators, whether it be an HRV monitor, whether that, you know, just monitoring their heart rate in the morning, grip test, things like that. And then obviously you always want to keep lines of communication open between you and the fighter. Yeah. So every time that my guys come in, I know exactly what they did that day, but I also want to ask them how they're feeling, because you never know. Like, it could be a hard day, especially at ATT. They're always training hard, right? They're always smashing each other. The sparring that they go through, you got guys that are super high level, elite level. So every day they're sparring, it's 110%. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's no real, okay, we're just going to play around here. A lot of times, especially the older guys, we try to taper them off a little bit earlier because they've just been training for so long.
Talking about as far as their lifting and strength,
everything. We try to do everything, like as far as, because again, I could taper them off of the weight training, but they're going to do a hard, you know, rolling session or a hard grappling session or a hard sparring session. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So, for, you know, stress is systemic. So we want to make sure that everything is calculated.
Okay. And now, because I'm going to be a little bit selfish here. There's a lot of listeners that, like, let's say they want to get into boxing, right? Or they want to get into jiu-jitsu, but they're built and they want to maintain muscle. I know a lot of people who are scared of losing muscle and losing a little bit of strength, getting into a different type of martial art. Yeah. So thinking into that person's kind of brain, what do they need to think about, or what kind of considerations do they need to take while, like, to handle their strength and conditioning, so they don't lose too much strength as they do either jiu-jitsu or boxing, and as they really try and progress in either?
Now, are we talking about making a weight class, or just in general?
Just in general, because a lot of listeners aren't necessarily getting into MMA, but they want to get into, like, I know a lot of people that are getting into jiu-jitsu, maybe like, want to compete in it or learn it, or they want to get into, like, boxing and compete and learn it a little bit, but they don't want to, like, get small. Like, I've seen pictures of you on your Instagram. You're jacked, but you can still move, and you can still...
That's good coming from you, man.
But you can still move, and obviously you can still fight. So what type of considerations do they need to think about when structuring their lifting protocol?
Well, definitely you want to work through full ranges of motion, right? You want to increase your ability to move well, and that's doing mobility type work, right? I do a lot of FRC training like we're going to do today, but primarily what I want to do is I want to make sure that I have control of my body in all ranges. So again, I have to make sure that I can put myself in a position and basically explore those ranges in all movements. Base compound movements are always going to be good, right? You got the squat, bench, deadlift, all that stuff too. You want to hinge, you want to carry, you want to pull, you want to do some rotation, right? And then obviously from there, we want to do some more higher dynamic movement patterns, right? Because you have to still be explosive, right? You have to be explosive, but you have to be in control. And I always say, you know, power means nothing without control. So we have to make sure that our body is in a capable position to produce force and redirect force. So we do things from a full spectrum, and I use a conjugate style of an approach, especially when it comes down to, like, my grapplers, but also my MMA guys. Because we have so much limited time to train, so we have to make sure that we're getting everything all in one, you know?
So what kind of movements, like, for that specifically, so that people can have some ideas of some, like, of these dynamic movements you're talking about?
So low level plyometrics, so you know, hops, bounds, jumps like that. Box jumps are always going to be key. I rarely do depth jumps just because of the force impact, you know, and they're getting smashed all the time, you know. And with my jiu-jitsu guys, they barely can jump anyways. No offense, guys. No offense. Right. Because well, one, you're in a fixed position all the time, especially if you play on bottom guard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So things start to happen. You know, you're that kyphotic posture. You're drawn in, tight psoas, tight hip flexors, things like that. So what we want to do is we want to balance out the body too as well. So we work a lot of posterior chain work. We work a lot of oblique sling work. We work a lot of lateral chain. That's going to go ahead and enhance their ability to do work on the mats, but also, you know, reduce the risk of injury. And that's the main thing. Yeah. What I like to make sure that everybody does is, one, we have to make sure that they are performing well, but we also have to make sure that they're sustaining their ability to progress.
Now, when you talk about like postural movements, because I do notice a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, they're like this all the time, or they're so you think that, or what you do is you have them do a lot of back work to even things out, right? Yeah,
I mean, back, glutes, hamstrings, you know, we just do a lot of extension work, you know, good mornings, you know, reverse hypers, a lot of those. And honestly, you have restorative work there too as well. We do a lot of work on the belt squat. So we'll do some traction on that, sled marches, things like that, you know, just to get more functionality in the entire body.
Okay.
What I've seen lately, especially if you are a guard player, right, is lower back is a little bit weaker because they're rounded forward, right? They barely use that. If you play on top, if that's your game, now you need to have a strong posture, right? Because you don't want them to break your posture. So again, we work a lot, no matter where their game is. We want to make sure that the posterior chain is strong. And then the adductors, hip flexors, things like that, obviously that's going to come into play too. But again, like I talked about before with you know, off air, is that it's good to be flexible, but you also have to have control in end ranges, and you have to be strong in those ranges. It's one thing to get in a position, it's another to be strong in that end range position.
Okay.
And how are you like managing, or like, how are you balancing like not overtraining some of these athletes? Because, you know, like you said, they have the BJJ coach, the wrestling coach, the strength coach, and just like, how do you manage all that?
Yeah, I mean, well, mostly it's understanding the schedule, right? Understanding the demands of the sport, understanding the skills training. And then from there, you need to have some type of objective measure, right? Whether that be, like I said, a heart rate variability monitor, where it's going to measure the variance of the heart rate. And then from there, we can kind of dictate, okay, how well or how hard are we going to go that day? A lot of things also is that I have so many fighters, a lot of them can't just get an HRV monitor. You know what I mean? So what I'll end up doing is, you know, I'll watch them, you know, as they go through their movements, as they go through the dynamic movements. And if their coordination's off, or, you know, if they're not talkative, or, you know, they're kind of down, you can see it in their eyes, then I may just go ahead and ask them, you know, what did you do today? And how hard was it? And usually sometimes I'll even go to the training and I'll be there in the gym. So that helped me out a lot, don't get me wrong. But if you're another strength and conditioning coach that just doesn't have the ability to be inside the MMA gym, you need to make sure that you're communicating with the skills coaches. And then from there, they could be like, and the skills coaches are going to tell you, like, we kind of pushed them today. Let's back it off a little bit. Now we're getting to the point where before everybody was trying to smash the fighter, right? Now we're getting to the point, at least in my opinion, that everybody's communicating very well, and we're trying to keep, you know, a solid progression going, and we're not trying to smash them every day.
You know, it's funny because we had Andy Galpin on, and he echoed the exact same thing you said. He does more than nutrition stuff for fighters, but he's like all these coaches are smashing these fighters. If everyone can just communicate together, they can get to the fight safely.
Exactly.